This is Adrien Brody. He's 29 years old, and this is not makeup. He actually lost over 30 pounds for this role. He sold his apartment, gave up his phone, and left his entire life behind.
The pain that does exist in the world, the suffering, and yet made me really grateful for my good fortune.
This is not a normal performance. This is a man who completely broke himself for a film that was almost too real to make. And this is not a film set. Those are real ruins in Warsaw, the same streets that once saw the destruction you're about to witness. This is The Pianist, a film that doesn't just show survival, it feels like survival.
I think what's wonderful about this story is that it's not a general perspective of it, but it focuses on one man's struggle and one man's strength through all of that.
And what's even more haunting than the story on screen is the story of how it was made. Before Schindler's List, before Life is Beautiful, there was The Pianist. And while those films also dealt with the Holocaust, this one feels different. Because its director wasn't imagining the horror. He lived it.
I was a kid and I wanted to live. I wanted to see my parents.
Roman Polanski had escaped the Krakow ghetto as a child. He knew what it was like to hide in silence, to lose family to the camps, to survive when no one else did. So when he chose to make The Pianist, he wasn't just making a film. He was reopening a wound that had never healed. Chapter 1. A Man and a Piano. Warsaw, 1939. Władysław Szpilman, a real pianist, a real man, is playing live on Polish radio when the first bombs drop. He doesn't stop playing. Not yet. The film follows his descent from a celebrated artist to a starving man hiding in the shadows of his own city. Each scene strips away another layer of normalcy, another piece of humanity, until all that's left is silence. It's not a war film in the traditional sense. There are no battlefields, no soldiers to root for. It's about the civilians, those who watched their world disappear one note at a time. Chapter 2. The Three Forces and Pre-Production. There are three names that defined The Pianist. First, Roman Polanski, the director. As a child, he lost his mother at Auschwitz.
He was a child. He saw his mother taken to Auschwitz, never coming back.
All my family was killed. My father survived a very hard concentration camp, Mauthausen in Austria.
He escaped the ghetto only because a stranger risked their life to hide him. For decades, he refused to make a film about the Holocaust. He said it was too personal, too dangerous to reopen. But then he read Szpilman's memoir, and he saw himself in every page. He decided to face his own past.
I wanted it to look like scenes in life. I didn't want to give more than it's necessary. We just had to tell this story.
Second, Ronald Harwood, the screenwriter. He adapted Szpilman's memoir into something simple and honest. No Hollywood arcs, no sentimental speeches, just one man enduring unspeakable horror in silence.
I couldn't put it down. I remember my wife calling and saying, "Are you coming in for supper tonight?" And I then got in touch with Polanski the next day and said I'd love to do it. I thought it was a most compelling and wonderful story, and that's how that began.
He said, "The power lies in what you don't show," and that became the guiding principle of the film. And finally, Adrien Brody, the actor who became Szpilman. To prepare for the role, he sold almost everything he owned. He gave up his apartment, his car, his television. He wanted to understand what it meant to lose everything. He practiced piano for hours each day until he could play Chopin by memory. He stopped eating, dropping from 160 to 130 pounds. Brody said, "I didn't just play Szpilman. I became him." But Polanski pushed further. He refused to film on constructed sets. He shot in real ruins, real Warsaw streets, the same ones he'd walked as a boy during the war. He said, "The ghosts are still here." And maybe they were. During one scene, Brody found a real bullet casing embedded in a wall. Nothing about this film was comfortable. It wasn't meant to be. Chapter 3. The War Within. From the very start, Polanski made it clear There would be no dramatization, no glorification, no heroic ending. He wanted truth, not spectacle. Everything you see, from the executions to the starvation to the silence, was based on real testimonies. When Szpilman hides under the floorboards, when he eats scraps from a can, when he plays an imaginary piano so he won't make a sound, all of it happened. And behind the camera, Polanski kept the same quiet intensity. He didn't yell, he didn't stage emotion. He simply said, "Remember, this really happened." There's a scene where Szpilman finds a single piece of bread. He holds it like it's a diamond. That one scene captures the entire film's philosophy, that survival isn't about strength, it's about holding on to something human when everything else has been stripped away. For Polanski, this was personal. He once said, "When you grow up with the fear of being discovered and killed, you never really escape it. And when you watch The Pianist, you can feel that, the haunting stillness, the quiet terror that never leaves." Chapter 4: The Moment of Humanity. In one of the film's final acts, Szpilman, half-starved, covered in rags, is discovered by a German officer. He expects to die. But instead, the officer asks him to play.
Spielen Sie mal.
Szpilman sits at a frozen piano and begins to play Chopin. The camera doesn't move. It doesn't need to. Because in that moment, music becomes resistance. Art becomes survival. The enemy becomes human. That German officer, Wilhelm Hosenfeld, was a real man. He secretly helped Jews in Warsaw, and he was later imprisoned by the Soviets. He died there. And when Polanski filmed that scene, he said it was the hardest one of his career, because it reminded him that even in horror, there are flickers of mercy. Chapter 5: The Truth Behind the Silence. When The Pianist premiered in 2002, no one was prepared for what they saw. There were no heroic speeches, no redemption arcs, just silence. The kind that stays with you long after the credits roll. It won the Palme d'Or. It won 3 Oscars. And it made Adrien Brody the youngest actor ever to win Best Actor. But the real impact of the film can't be measured in awards. Because what it gave the world wasn't entertainment. It was memory. Roger Ebert called it one of the most important films ever made about survival. He said, "It doesn't ask for your tears. It demands your remembrance." And he was right. Polanski didn't make The Pianist to move you. He made it so we would never forget. Decades later, Brody said he still carries the experience with him. He said, "I had nightmares for months after filming, but I don't regret it, because those nightmares belonged to someone else long before me." The line between fiction and history had blurred. Just like Coppola said about Apocalypse Now, The Pianist isn't just about survival. It is survival. Polanski never made another film like it. He said he didn't need to. The Pianist was his way of closing a chapter, not of history, but of his own life. And perhaps that's what makes it so haunting. Because when you watch it, you're not just seeing a story. You're seeing the echoes of something that actually happened. To Szpilman, to Polanski, to millions of others who never got to play their final note. In the final scene, Szpilman sits back at a piano, alive but changed forever. He plays the same melody he once did before the war began, only now the silence between the notes feels heavier, because we know what that silence cost. And maybe that's the real message of The Pianist, that even in the darkest silence, there is still music. And as long as there is music, there is humanity. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again very, very soon.